he could add in his head, like,
Yeah.
just like
Like a-
whiz.
Really?
Yeah, faster. I have to put it down, see the figure and add it. But he could do it in his head.
He must have had practice in the mill.
Yes, so.
He will be preaching at the anniversary service.
Yes, he was there some years ago. He came.
I've never seen him since he was,
And you had your grasshopper?
oh, a long, long time.
I remember him at the mill when I was 7 or 8 years old, and I didn't see him again until we were at Limehouse last spring. And you know, he had gone from a teenager to an older man.
Yes.
He's a little bit hunched over now.
Is he?
Yeah.
I imagine he'll look like his dad.
Well, I think his dad was probably taller than Jim is.
Yes, he
Oh,
was.
really?
Yes.
Oh. I never seen him with a grown man. So,
He looks like a little man now, but he's got a big spirit.
oh.
He's a very
Nice guy.
nice man. Very. He
Well,
went
they're
to
a
the-
nice
yeah,
family.
very nice.
Well,
Should we get to some of these questions then?
Yeah, we're gonna get to them.
Make sure that we get through all of them. I pressed record a couple of minutes ago because you guys were talking about a few things. So, but if you don't want that part, then I can just delete it. But
Doesn't
I don't
bother me.
think that there's anything too risque in there. Yes. Can we state everybody's name so that we have it on the record? Because it's likely not going to be. Excuse me, I have a bit of a cold. It's not probably going to be me that's doing sort of the write up on it. It might be, I'm not sure, but just in case, we need everybody's name so that the records can be clear. We want to start with you.
Okay.
Just state your first and last name for the
Oh,
record, and
Annie
your name if you like.
Rodell Snow. I was born. And married. Is that what you want?
Sure. Yeah.
In April 7th, 1945, to Archie Gates. And we were married until he passed away in 1998. And then I was widowed for a while, and my goodness, we moved around quite a bit. Anyway, from Rockwood, the house in Rockwood, I moved to the condominium in Guelph, and where I met my second husband, Bert Smith. And we were married in June of 2002. So I became Annie Gates Smith then, that's what I go by now. And Bert passed away in 2007 in September. And then I was alone again. And I stayed on at the condo until May last year, when I moved here at Eden House. Which I think I'm very fortunate to be here.
Can I ask how old you are?
I'm 83, born October 6, 1925, at Balnafad, in the house at Route 1, Georgetown, actually, and lived there until I was married in 1945.
Do you still know some of the people who live there?
Oh, yes, I know some, but they're dwindling. It's getting less all the time. To pinpoint who I know there now, it would be hard.
Are they people that you're related to, or friends or extended family?
Neighbors. All the family have left that area.
Fix one artist and
Yeah, Vic Swimmers. I wasn't thinking of him. Well, that's a hard question.
Birds. The people on the 6th line have stayed better, I think, than a lot of others. Harvey Burt's parents or mom was still in the house, I think. But
I think Harvey still lives there, maybe.
and Lois McLean is still in the house there, according to the Browns.
Really?
Well, that's what Helen said. Now she sounds. Dawn corrected her a couple of times, so she's starting to forget some things, I guess. But anyway, I better stop.
I honestly can't say as I.
So it's hard to,
Yeah, it's hard to remember.
well, hard to. We're not over there all the time.
The 6th, 7th, and 8th lines.
Yeah.
No, I'll have to go on from there. I don't.
Okay, it's no problem. Did you have much family in the area? Can you talk
Oh,
about
yes.
Some of the family.
Yes. My aunt and uncle lived up at on the 6th line and Peacock Side Road.
A mile north of Belmafed.
Yeah, so above Balnafed and to the west.
Apple Yards.
Yeah, Apple Yards and down below Silver Creek. That's my mother's half sister and her husband and family.
Remember Grant Baker?
Oh yes, Grant Baker, yes, has the service station
At Silver Creek.
at Silver Creek, yes. I'm sorry I haven't.
Oh,
Oh no, that's okay.
that's all right.
Um,
You just
how-
you remember. You don't have to worry.
How long has your family lived in this area or? in
Well,
that
my
area?
parents came to Balnafed, to the farm there that was owned by the Campbells, and that was the same year as my brother Bud was born in 1919. And apparently it was that same fall they moved up there that he was born. So they had been there until Betty and Elwood moved away from the farm. I don't know what year that was, though.
No, I don't either. We moved into Eden Mills.
Do you
Sold
remember
the-
how
sold
many
the
years
farm.
that you were in Eden?
Hmm?
Do you remember how many years you were in Eden Mills?
Oh. No, I'm afraid I couldn't give you a good answer on that.
I think you must have moved out of there.
After Elwood died, I found I couldn't stay alone because Peter was still at home, but he was away, left early, came home late and all that. And I went down to live with Nancy at near Hamilton. And that was fine for a while, but she had 5 children, and there was always somebody going to ball practice, or they had to pick somebody up at school, and they had to take somebody for an eye appointment or things like
Grand
that.
Central Station, like.
Yes, it was so busy. And I said to Nancy, you'll have to find a place for me. I'm too much trouble here. So she took me up here to Eden House
I'll bet she said, "You're not too much trouble to me."
and took me up to Fergus to the home up there. But in that home, when you out the front door, you were right on the street.
Oh, yes.
And was I ever glad when a place came open here, you know, where you could walk around.
Right. Agreed.
And we
So,
brought that plant in that's down in the activity room here. A big, I don't know what the name of it is, but it has the leaves are red and green, striped.
Multicolored, like.
Yes,
Is it a croton?
I don't know, it could be,
A leaf like this.
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Pretty well like that. And sometimes the one I've got right now has very pale yellow leaves with red blotches on in one spot, and the rest are all green.
Oh,
So it varies, it
Yeah,
changes
this
color.
one varies too. quite a
yes,
bit.
it does.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a croton.
I wouldn't doubt it is.
okay, well, where did your family originally come from? Like, where did they live before they moved to the area?
Well, my father came from Milton area, and but he was a thrasher man and liked machinery, and he wanted to live out west, so he was out west after being in Milton. So to say exactly where he lived, I guess with Uncle Ed and the family.
So they lived there in the home farm,
And
or what became the home farm in Gramps' later years or late teens.
And my mother was between her relatives in a sense. She was with her grandmother and grandfather because her mother had died when she was 2 years old, and so her sister and her brother, the family was divided up, and my mother went with her grandparents. Her sister, my aunt, went with the uncles and aunts up at the farm that I spoke about was my relative on the Peacock Side Road. So my mother worked between the grandparents' place and that place through her life.
Mhm.
She's always talked so much about that. She was a great one for helping out where she was needed. And then the grandmother died. And her aunt, the sister, Aunt Lydia, properly, helped to raise her. It was I think my mother got shifted around a bit
Mhm.
in her growing years.
Well, you see, I was born down near past Cornwall, near the Quebec border, you see. And when I graduated from teachers college, I had to find a job. And I applied to two places where they wanted a teacher. One was up north, and the other was at Balnafad. And I never heard from the other one, but I was accepted there. And I started teaching there, and that's just how I got going.
Do you remember what year that was?
Oh,
I
How
would
old
say
would
it
you
was
be?
around 42.
It'd be in the early 40s, because I was married in 1945.
I would say 42 would be close. Because of things that happened in my life at the same
Yes,
time.
Yep. Aunt Betty stayed with Mom's family.
yes.
Oh, he did it.
In those days, they didn't provide a house for the teacher. Somebody in the community had to board the teacher. And that's where I met my husband and his brother.
At the breakfast table. I shouldn't say breakfast, it was at the kitchen table.
Okay. Well, what kind of work did everybody did? You mentioned that you were a school teacher.
Well, I never did have any job. I helped at home after I only went to school until I was, I passed my entrance, went half a year to Georgetown High School, then got sick and was traveling, commuting was difficult. So my mother went to our public school teacher. The attendance at the school was very low. And she said, would you guide me through the rest of grade 9? And she said she would. So I went to the public school there and she gave me grade 9. That's all the schooling I had. That was the end of mine. And my mother needed me at home. She needed the help.
That was Muriel Crossman?
Yes. The teacher was Muriel Crossman.
And so she taught there right up till Aunt Betty came then.
Oh, yes,
Close?
I guess so.
I wouldn't be sure of that.
The other girls that I remember, that would be before you.
When Muriel Crossman was there, she would probably have finished then.
I remember that my salary was $700 a year,
Yes,
and that time
yes.
was quite a bit. And Mrs. Bennett, in her will, she left me $1,000.
Really? And that's
Well,
something.
I told you before, that was the war years, and Mr. Bennett had family still in, where they were fighting, and he phoned his brother to see if he would take his children and send them to school. And I